I'm Teddy Serapin, founder and CEO of Rainmaker. Why don't we start with an introduction to just short about you, yourself, your company, and then tell us one thing about yourself that nobody knows. Let's start with Reed.
Yeah, great to be here. I've always learned to talk on different panels and read a lot of people these space. But yes, been very deep at the beginning. I'm with both Amazon Credit, with their CPO, and they really proud to see how that company has just transformed the BCA and be the foundation for that today. But you never stop bringing data, and after that, another handful of companies in this case. Blockly, 100% key platforms and regulatory infrastructure aren't needed. And now I put it all, it's really bringing values to markets to continue to be the or
They give us one thing nobody knows from us.
this Abbott Cobbler Python server and all out here in GC.
Go ahead. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder, CEO of Seaver and Valueit. One is a payments company within the Web3 space, specifically serving Web2 institutions. Enabled over $7.4 billion in transactions all over the world since we launched in 2023. And the other, Valueit, is a asset tokenization platform. While we are tokenizing assets with self-permission capabilities, we are also using global confined secondary markets for them.
One thing that no one knows about me, I play a lot of chess. It might be Delipiker, test zero smart.
Well, Jeremy. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jeremy. I'm the founder and CEO of Open Eden. We're an end-to-end RWA tokenization platform that brings regulated tokenized products and stable coins on chain. I came from traditional finance. I spent 20 years in investment banking. I was running Goldman Sachs derivative business in Hong Kong and Singapore before I started Gemini Exchange in Asia. And something that people that don't know about me is I'm 50. I've got 4 kids. They're not that young. My oldest is 21. But I'm having a young iPad, working with the young crypto people and being energized. Very happy to be here.
Hi, my name is Terrence Block. I'm the founder of Humanity Protocol. We're building a data and verification-based blockchain. What we're doing, we're starting with sort of biometric space with a personhood for humanity and using that to kickstart other types of attributes that we want to verify about people. So ranging from proving where you once sold to employment to maybe even nationality, accredited investor status. So we're building reusable credentials. We launched our testnet, so we're not mainnet yet, but our testnet has around 6 million people who have already signed up. One thing that people all know about me is I also play a lot of chess, so I'm pretty chill.
So that's what makes chess fun. Even if you're chill, it's so fun, except when you get your ass kicked. An identity as a real-world asset maker, we'll start there because someone saw you look at RWAs and maybe how Humanity Protocol specifically, like where's the nexus you guys are looking at real-world assets that relates to data identity?
I think when it comes to RWA, Jeremy, I've been speaking to for a long time, talking about how some of the challenges for RWA platforms is obviously having to deal with regulated assets, right? When you're dealing with regulated assets, there needs to be some sort of regulated framework on chain to enable this. And so one of the key things that we're trying to do is essentially provide privacy-preserving identity and reusable credentials. So in the sense that I think when you think about sort of historically in DeFi, everything is non-regulated, wallet addresses are pseudonymous, nobody knows what's going on. And then you look at traditional financial space where everybody's KYC, KYB. I think there's probably an angle where the very first type of adoption will come from something in between, in the sense that, we don't really care about doing a full KYC on the person, but as long as we know that you're not sanctioned, or, we don't really need to know your name, your nationality, all that sort of stuff, but we know that you're an accredited investor, right? So what we're trying to enable, not just for our own blockchain, but also for other blockchains, is these sort of credentials. As I mentioned, it's starting with the humanity all the way to financial information.
What about you, Jeremy? I'm talking about Obernin and what you guys are doing in the RWA space. Maybe if there's something either outside your company that you feel is relevant, you want to share at this moment, moving so fast. And I feel for the audience, how about a show of hands? How many of you are familiar with RWAs and are pretty savvy in that regard?
All right, so we got these guys don't go deep in the peanut butter, as I like to say, less than 10%. So maybe like let's go to the edge. Like, where are you seeing the most interesting, innovative things in the RWA space that might be of value special to the crowd? Yeah, maybe I would take a step back before we go into what is really, really cutting edge and innovative. Let's talk about what has worked so far. I think stablecoins is actually the biggest product market fit when it comes to tokenization, because a stablecoin is in fact a tokenized deposit or money market funds, and obviously we have the biggest expert here, and I'm very happy that you're sharing with the seats. And it has been used prevalently, right? Whether it's for trading, for payments, as a collateral. But I think what is really interesting we have seen is a new brand of stablecoin that has emerged. Basically, they're U-bearer. And at Open Eden, I think that was what we have pursued to break forward to the market. So 2 months ago, we launched our stablecoin for Bowman Dollar, USBO. It is issued out of a regulated entity, bankruptcy remote, fully backed by tokenized T-bills product, which is one of our first products, so that we can have a product that is truly regulatory compliant, fully transparent from a collateral standpoint, and obviously really important is to share the rewards or the yield with the holders. And we think that that is really going to change the way even both DeFi and TradFi work, because it brings a real true risk-free yield on-chain. And for people that need to use it on exchanges, instead of using the non-yield-bearing stable asset, they can now use a stable asset that is a yield-bearing, which is exactly how we do things in TradFi, right? You post dollar cash, you get ripple rates, and then you trade. So why can't we do that on the crypto space? So I think that is really, really interesting. And I'll save some time for the rest of the panel to talk about what is really innovative out there.
I don't know. Did you pick the right timing on tokenizing the T-bills, I wonder? Relative to the tariffs and Trump and everything else? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's a right or wrong time. Cash is cash. I think what we want to do is to be able to bring dollar assets digitally onto everyone's wallet and get rewarded for that. And giving them the reward that's coming from the safest and most liquid asset in the world. Open source money.
Hi, go ahead, Ross. Tell us what you guys are doing on RWA and the insights you should share with it. Sure.
Well, I'll tell you my personal ethics. It's really the use of blockchain technology towards real-world applications and assets, right? Blockchain technology was created to enable verifiability of data and transferability for assets, data, etc. Now, different projects, some of my different ways, all on the board. The way we are doing it is at Cebu, we are effectively acting as a global clearinghouse for about 76 currencies, enabling institutions to on and off ramp to skip coin donation way, because stablecoins still retrieve a pretty passive being with our emerging economies, and value it where effectively using it to be illiquid assets liquid, right? I mean, it's simpler said than done. Most RWA companies today are tokenizing assets, bringing them on chain. Your assumption that Web3 native audiences will want to interact or acquire these assets that are either alpha-based or beta-based, yielding annual to 84%. But the problem is Web3 native audiences get into Web3 because they're risk-prone. They want to pick up risk. And some of these assets are meant to be risk-adjusted %. So the solution we have created at Value or real-world assets in secondary market is to reintegrate this asset in legacy infrastructure cross borders, right? Think about it through as private credit fund, Goldman Sachs securitized fixed flip loans to general contractors, yielding linear to top 10%. And now a Turkish person gets to allocate what used to be the Turkish lira towards a US denominated asset yielding 12-60%. I think this is the real use this sort of blockchain technology when it comes to building your own assets, and that's what we are focused on by using blockchain technology, enabling transferability, keeping them compliant with data verification, and allowing cross-border trade of securities.
It's interesting is going back to 18, I think it was a good jumping off point to you. The rallying cry of the industry was there's trillions of dollars in assets like Joker. That was a rallying cry. But now it seems like the technology, the regulatory clarity, all that's opening up. Your legacy as a pioneer in the space, and all the pioneers have the arrows on their back, the tether, and even now which boot. Maybe jump off that and tell us how your experience has now informed what you're doing with RWAs, with high and your losses.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I totally agree with you saying that the RWA revolution is going to lead to the democratization of these very high quality, high yielding assets, but provide access to everyone. And so it's really important that in the structure, like what you're doing, the companies are now really focus on these types of investments that everybody in the world will be able to remit out before this that they could be when they want to be for just do it sensor. But now, again, the blockchain technology is you couples easy data infrastructure. These people will have a new life form and they'll be connected to global economy. So RWAs are part of the traditional assets that are most focused on. This piece is super interesting area. But there's so much more too. People really go to some these art investments, but let's just take it down a notch for all the other kinds of items out there. And it's and it blends in NFTs. They think about an NFT is a tokenization as well of real world goods. So even not luxury items. So NFTs have gotten that bad because there was so much speculation in zero value. But we've only scratched the surface on the use case of NFTs. And NFTs really is a real asset being tokenized as well. So pick up designer bits, ledger bits, and see all sorts of bits. They're going to come in our regulated NFT that is going to provide a lot of data. And it's also going to write and this keep the sooner. So imagine if all the data sharing and consumers can sell it, luck being sold. And then the grain name that is providing it, the brand now has a direct connection to that consumer. And so in addition to just assets and the financial investees being tokenized, with all objects and tokenized, everyone's likes will make it a little easier and then they get more value, then extract more value out of the everyday transactions of the year-longs. So it spans the use cases of major inclusion, democratization, really quality assets, as well as everyday lives that we're going to have is going to increase the value that we get in our transaction. We will increase due to Web3 or Web3 wallet and all our lazy season fall.
But the modernization of wealth creation is kind of what I'm hearing like across the board in different layers that you guys are all attacking. That as like a fundamental, what I like to think of is the reason why we all, many of us, I should say not all, but many of us got in this space because I could be in TradFi or you can be on Wall Street, like instead we're out here in Dubai, you know, I'm in red suits, although I see more people wearing suits nowadays, that's changed. I think we'll have a few more minutes, so why don't each of you, we'll start with you since you ended and go down, share one thing that you think would be the most valuable insight you could give the audience here today, whatever it is, open us.
Look, it's a really exciting time. Everybody's here because we know that we're at this inflection point. Look, I've been thinking about stablecoins since the beginning. It's been a decade where stablecoins aren't just on the side or they are the crypto narrative. And we're here because we feel and we know and we realize it's about to get a multi-trillion-dollar course to change all financial systems across the world. The regulations finally catch up within the able the institutions get involved and it may unlock a massive scale and liquidity in this space. And so it's just a very exciting time. There's going to be 100 plus stable coins, hours plus stable coins coming. But that's okay because we're going to have AI that makes it real easy for you to do whatever you want to do. You're not going to care what stable coin you use. You're going to care what you pay out of that transaction. So that's the future at sea.
No, also, yeah, I absolutely agree on your stablecoin cases. And Additionally, to your store of value and value transfer, I actually think stablecoins will become a really good tool to this leverage within the market. So at Cebu, we're doing exactly that. And I think this is going to be the biggest use case for Web3 native audiences and users to actually allow RWAs to become collateral within money markets, within CE to be able to either deposit Bitcoin, Ethereum, native token, etc. against it and earn real world yield against your deposits within money markets, or be able to mint stablecoin against RWAs, and which is another way to actually make a liquid asset liquid while also utilizing as what you got. It also creates a stronger denomination for currency than what being half to the So that's kind of my thesis as to what the biggest use case or leverage bodies would be for RWAs, which was leverage using RWAs and money markets. Deposition, all of these.
Now, I agree with the both of you. You shared about all the great utilities and all the composability of RWA or stablecoin. So maybe what I would share is what I would like everybody is to not only just focus on the opportunities or the returns, but let's look at risk. And I think there will be a proliferation of all kinds of RWA token issuer. But I think the notion of too big to fail is something that we should always remember in history. Lehman was big, it failed. And in our world, in fact, the biggest guys were the ones that shrink down fast. So I think it's really important as a user or an investor to discern a product. And I will look at two things. One is regulatory compliant, whether it's an issuer or a project licensed or regulated and in which jurisdiction. And number two, legal structuring, whether the issuance is bankruptcy remote. So I think these are the two things that we need to be aware before this ends up quickly.
I think, I'll stick to two things, right? One is what Raj said earlier about, the crypto audience is generally very risk-loving. So I think actually the biggest opportunity for RWA is actually sort of developing markets, right? You want somebody in a developing country to be able to use cash or, their bank account to be able to simply convert into stable and then buy something through an RWA platform that earns 10-20% yield. That is super interesting versus a crypto dude who expecting 2, 3, 5x on meme coins. This is not as interesting. And I think that's probably why it's taken a little bit longer for the infrastructure to be built up. So I think, yes, I think the first thing is it's definitely important to focus more on what has traditionally been considered sort of a long tail audience in the crypto sector, RWA. And I think the other thing I want to speak to is what Jeremy just said about the whole problem too big to fail. And I think probably a lot of you might not agree with me, but I think the thing that everybody thinks that's too big to fail is probably the US dollar in terms of dollar dominancy. So, I think even just thinking about other currencies when it comes to obviously, USDT and USDC and whatnot, that's dominant player and backed by US dollars, right? But I actually think there should be more stable coins coming out being backed by India, backed by, the RMB, backed by a sort of thing, whether it's for FX purposes or even just, if suddenly Ray Dalio is correct and then, the world shifts, then they're solo backed up.
So I'm going to take another show of hands. How many people are bullish about blockchain and crypto at this moment in time? Who's feeling really bullish right now? And let's spill over. I mean, I would say this is a good time to be bullish as that it's poor. Blockchain technology really transforms the way value is created and is distributed. If you look at RWA and tokenization, like the days of us making easy money off pumping ducks and all bullshit that's happened in this space in the last 7 years that honestly given us a bad name, those days are coming to an end. The good news is the opportunity now with regulation, with technology, is for us to actually deliver on commerce, which is, the way value is created, meaning keyword value. And we look at RWA, to me, it's about tying these assets being tokenized to real value, whether it's a derivative asset and letting a Turkish investor get into it, whether it's data and engagement that normal humans are generating, allowing humans to earn money in a world where AI is racing ahead. I think the need for this core foundational technology to blockchain tokenization greater than ever, but the work to actually do it right is where we're at now. I think we have time for one more. If you could do one sentence or as little as 3 words to summarize yourself or your view of the world, I'm going to let you go first. 3 words, 1 sentence max. Go.
Well, circularity, it's also a request for the builders, right? Like, we know that these systems are trustless, but they're still built on the foundation itself. So just be ethical, bring your best self to the game, and then the world will follow. Because as an industry, we'll stand it up.
And then
I think in Web3, we're running the phase where product market fit is at the end of the game, and user acquisition is utmost of importance if we're actually going to push blockchain technology to become mainstream.
Jerome?
Don't trust, verify. 3 words.
No, I think it's as I said earlier, it's important to really look at a wider audience and just the perfect brand. If you look at on-chain activity, it's probably 100,000 people, million people that are doing things on chain. So hopefully, there are work builders for companies focusing on your long tail audience, so that we can really get infrastructure dealing like a billion people.
The power of it's humanity. All right, thank you guys. Thanks, everyone.